All right, Coach, so these are very similar to what we call a deadlift, but they're a little bit off the ground. Does that sound about right?
That's about right. That's really the only change that we're making. Some gyms will have actual blocks of wood that you can use. We're looking for anywhere from a 2 to 5 inch elevation in general. And most gyms will have bumper plates that will work really well for you to just elevate the bar off the ground. All we're doing here is decreasing the range of motion a little bit to help introduce you to an awesome exercise that can be tricky for some people to perform from the floor, especially at first.
Now, if we have this programmed in here, we're going to have this in this month, but we may have it in future months, and people think this is too easy. Should they just go ahead and do the deadlift, or do you think people should still work on the block pulls?
Even for people who are very strong, block pulls like box squats are an awesome option and a great tool in your toolbox to be training on a regular basis, no matter how strong you are, because it allows us to overload the movement a little bit. For most people, this spot is actually the sort of sticking point where the movement is hardest. Most people can get the bar off the ground and then they get stuck around mid-shin. So this is really helping us attack that weak point specifically and can help us sort of overload the lockout as well. So even, the strongest squatters and deadlifters on earth are utilizing block pulls and box squats on a regular basis.
Okay. Thanks for that. So now when I set this up, again, where do I want to put my feet?
So we want to have the feet in sort of a power stance underneath the hips. So you can close your eyes, take a little hop, and you'll land right where you need to be. Yep, that's nice, narrow position, like where you would be if you were going to jump.
Now, where do I want to put my feet compared to the bar?
So we don't want to have the bar right touching the shins. There's no reason for us to have super bloody shins while we're training, and your knee will track forward just a wee bit at the very bottom. So a really good rule of thumb is that the bar should cover your shoelaces. Or the knot in your shoelaces. And that's a really good spot to be for just about everybody.
It ends up being about 2 inches or so.
Yep.
I'm looking at maybe 3 inches.
Yep.
Maybe 3 inches. Okay. So then what? I reach down.
Yep. So we've got the hands straight down from the shoulders. And a common mistake that people will make is they'll just sort of rush and just round through the back and bend through their knees. This just isn't a strong, stable position. What we can do instead is keeping the arms straight. We can push the hips back until the hamstrings are tight. And we'll be just a little bit short of the bar. And then from there, we just move the knees that little bit extra to get the hands in place. And this is a great strong position that puts the hips in a very advantageous position.
Okay. So grab the bar.
Yep.
And what's the cue going up?
We really like to cue leg press the floor away from us because that really helps drive through the lower body so we're not just relying on the back. We can also think about pushing the hips forward to meet the bar so we have this really strong lockout position at the very top.
So you get to the top, then what?
Then we'll go in that exact opposite order of hips go back. And then once we start to feel the hamstrings are tight, we can bend through the knee to bring us down to this initial starting position. And you'll notice that the bar stays very close. One of the only universal truths is we're always strongest when the weight, the dumbbell or the barbell, is closest to our center of mass. So if we can keep it really close to our ears, to our ankles, and have the bar just trace our legs on the way up, that's going to be a really strong position.
Yeah. Any other cues, feet position?
Some people will wind up toeing out very slightly. That's okay if it feels comfortable for you. Some people will also wind up being a little bit wider than that hip width position. Again, we want to fit this to your body and what feels strongest. And as long as you've got your shoulder blades directly over the bar at the bottom and you have a pretty close to vertical shin, you're going to be in a good strong spot to lift heavy weight.
What are the most common issues you see? Like, I see people like bending their knees. Like you said in the beginning, they kind of bend and round their back. Is that the most common thing that you see?
Yeah, and those tend to go hand in hand, where people will want to squat the bar and they want to move a lot through the knee while staying upright because they naturally think that being upright is more stable or safer for our back. But it's actually not true. We want to move through the hips. We want this to be primarily a hinge with just a little bit of knee movement where the hips are really pushing back. The chest is down at the start. And from here, that rounded back position, a little bit of rounding through your back is fine here and is actually normal, especially through the upper back, through the T-spine or the thoracic spine. But what we don't want is for it to change a lot, right? Is to go from here to here. Right? This is not a strong position, and it means that I'm not braced and I'm not using my lats and the other muscles of my back to help keep the bar nice and close. So we want to think about maintaining a really strong and long spinal position, because that's what's going to help us more efficiently transfer force into the ground and lift the weight.
What about people who like really accentuate, kind of sticking their butt out, but through their lower back, as opposed to sticking their butt out from the hinge? They really extend at the lower back.
There's really no need to do that either, right? We don't want to be excessively flexed or rounded, and we don't want to be excessively arched or extended, because this puts a lot of pressure on our low back, and it isn't necessary. The muscles of our low back, our spinal erectors, are going to do their job without us trying to really go into the Instagram model hip position, right? This just doesn't feel good. We want to have the distance between our ribs and hips mostly maintained, right? And this is much stronger and more comfortable than, again, trying to really push my hips out. Even right here, this hurts and I'm not even holding the bar.